Life's not fair. It's a principle that we all learn at some point in life. Christian McCaffrey has found that out. If he didn't already know that when he didn't win the Heisman Trophy last December, here we are 6 months later, and I'm still shaking my head. Mark Rogers TV, running down the positional units across college football. We stop at Stanford with Nick Demspey from Rule of Tree. And Nick, Christian McCaffrey, I don't know that we can find any more superlatives to talk about this kid's play on the field. He does it all. He even throws touchdown passes. He catches 41 passes. He touches the ball more than anybody in the country. He's such a return specialist that they stopped kicking the ball to him. And then, yes, he's a running back as well who gained 2,000 yards.
Yeah, there's really not much else the guy can do. He did throw a touchdown pass last year as well.
I mentioned that. That was
short of putting him in at like defensive line. I'm not sure what else you can ask of the guy. It's insane. And what's really kind of scary, Mark, is the fact that David Shaw came out and told us Christian McCaffrey didn't know most of the playbook last year. So I think the plan for in a lot of those situations was option A is Christian McCaffrey in space. No, option B, get him in space. And then after that, go to like the one of the other 8 weapons you had on offense. But that's insane to me that he was just kind of out there blind, just give him the ball and go. That's crazy, and that seems so statistically improbable. In fact, it is statistically improbable because he broke a record. Barry Sanders had it for like a quarter of a century, and this guy did it without really knowing the playbook. That's crazy to me. I don't know how that happens unless you really are just something once in a generation elite.
Well, I was going to say, Nick, as soon as you said that he didn't really know the playbook, that the playbook for him should just be daylight. Basically, just a card that says daylight. He just runs to daylight, and that's
fine. Well. Find the backside of Joshua Garnett and go that way.
So I think his Heisman Trophy candidacy rests on a few things. Obviously, he comes into the season as the favorite, along with maybe Deshaun Watson of Clemson. It's going to come down to how successful Stanford is. We know that they're a good football team. Are they a 9-3 good football team, or are they contending for a national championship? The next thing is how many blowouts does Stanford play? Is McCaffrey going to be counted on in the fourth quarter? But the schedule's so difficult, you got to think that he's going to be needed late in games against big opponents. So is he going to make those couple plays? And we know he is, but are they going to be in the moments needed, in tie games with a deficit late in the fourth quarter that are going to jump out to people? But obviously the names on the radar, we talked about him this time last year. We knew about him as big college football fans, and you covering Stanford football, because he did make some really good plays as a true freshman. But now college football, you can't ignore the kid. We know who he is, even though his games are hidden on the West Coast. Everybody's going to be looking out for Christian McCaffrey. So it's going to come down to those kind of key components to the Heisman balloting and voting there for this kid. After that, Barry Sanders, talk about consistency. He ran for 315 yards last year. He ran for 315 yards in 2014, but he's off to follow in his dad's footsteps at Oklahoma State. So Bryce Love's a kid that got the football a little bit against Colorado and Cal specifically, and he showed some flashes too, Nick.
Yeah, he's actually kind of working the same program that Christian McCaffrey had. Christian McCaffrey's freshman year worked him in just a little bit, not too much. David Shaw's not fond of overloading freshmen or certainly not starting them. But there were flashes of brilliance when he did get his spots. He really took advantage of them. I think you're going to see him step up big this year. I think if you can show him, if he can show Coach Shaw and the offensive coaches that he can be relied upon for more than 5 or 6 touches every couple of games, if he can show that he's good for 20 touches, maybe more, who knows? Then I think you're really going to see a tandem that's tough to stop both. Christian McCaffrey will be the first one to tell you this. Bryce Love is exponentially faster than this guy, than himself. the kid's insanely fast. If you get him a seam, he's hard to tackle. And he's moving too quickly. You're not going to arm tackle this guy as a linebacker. So if you get both of them on the field, who do you cover? Who do you double? Who do you triple? And if that's the case, even if you find a way to dedicate 5 to 7 guys to stopping those two, you've still got Rector and a lot of other weapons that you can pivot to. So I think Bryce Love is going to give them a second element that is really going to make it difficult. This is especially true if the entire defense is going to go, 9 guys are going to chase after Christian McCaffrey, and Bryce Love's is going to burn past the rest of them. That could be really difficult because you can't shut them both down on every single play. Somebody's going to get through. And I think that's Bryce Love can really, if he can show that he's good for maybe like 15 to 20 touches every game, it could be huge for them. It brings in a second element. You're not overloading Christian McCaffrey. He's not, it's probably a huge part of the reason why he's not going to get, what he have 434 touches last year. Probably not going to be as many if you can get Bryce Love worked in there a lot more. So that could be huge for Stanford, even with all the question marks at quarterback and offensive line and all these other, question marks. You get those two going, you get them in space, you can do some damage. You can really get opposing defenses on their heels. So I think Bryce Love's really going to be the player to watch. Everyone will be watching McCaffrey, but how well Bryce Love, what kind of progression he makes this offseason, I think is going to be insanely critical for their success this year.
So Love had about 30 carries. He averaged 7.8 yards per carry, limited time, 2 touchdowns rushing. But you know what also speaks to your scouting report, Nick? This kid in limited playing time caught 15 passes and averaged 17 yards per reception. Not a lot of running backs out there averaging 17 yards per reception. So he caught the dink and dunks, and then, he hit the seam and picked up additional yardage. Colorado and Cal, he hit them up for 3 carries for 58 and 2 carries for 56. So, get him in space, and he's gone. And it's just another home run threat for defenses to account for. The other element of the Stanford running game, of course, during this time of prosperity has been the hard-hitting fullback, the guy that can just plot ahead and get you the yard that you need. Wright was the latest edition of that. We were talking before we came on that Cameron Scarlett, who's the #1 rated recruit out of Oregon, coming out of high school, 15th rated athlete in the nation, according to 24/7, might be the guy that fits the bill.
Yeah. So this is part of David Shaw's offensive progression he's had with Stanford. It used to be back in the day, you give the ball to Toby Gerhart, he runs as fast as he can, moves the pile 15 feet, and does it again until you score. They don't have a Toby Gerhart on this team. In fact, 2014, when they really struggled, a lot of their plays they were trying to run as if they had Toby Gerhart in the backfield, and they didn't have him back there. Once he started spreading things out, getting more guys involved, getting McCaffrey involved, their offense took off. But last year, and honestly, you can blame Wright just as much as you can blame your ignorant Heisman voters for this. He stole a lot of touchdowns from McCaffrey, so many that he actually got dubbed the Vulture, because McCaffrey would just, zip and slide and sprint down the field, get him inside the 5. And then Wright, guaranteed, no matter what the situation, was only good for about 2 to 3 yards, but only good. Every time he would get 2 to 3 yards, but never more, never less. So McCaffrey would get him inside the 5, and then rather than grind McCaffrey down into the dirt, pushing through the pile, they would just get the ball to Wright. Wright had some insane ratio for carries to touchdowns. It was something for every 2 carries, the guy had a touchdown, but he would only have 6 carries in a game. And so they actually dubbed him the Vulture because he had 20 plus touchdowns. And that all of those came right out of McCaffrey's stat sheet. He's not there anymore. So they're going to need someone to fill that role. Scarlett, I think, could be good. He's a redshirt freshman. His brother Brennan was the famous player from Cal who graduate transferred to Stanford. He redshirted last year. He's 220. He came out of high school 220, so he's probably going to be over 230 by the time he actually starts playing. And this guy could be, you know, sort of the closer. He could be the goal line guy or the third and short, fourth and short guy. He could fill in that Remound Wright role nicely. Or, you know, if you need Love or McCaffrey to just get some breathing time, come out for a play, he could fill that in nicely too. So I think not just because of McCaffrey, but top to bottom, I think the running back slot for Stanford, no surprise here, is the most exciting. I'm more interested to see the Stanford running backs than I am whoever ends up being the quarterback, because I think it's just going to be a lot of excitement, a lot of great things coming out of there. Love and McCaffrey on the field on the same play. I'm already smiling just at that thought. So fingers crossed that Love pans out to be as great as he could be.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch, and a coach's delight to scheme and try to work mismatches when you got two dynamic playmakers, not even accounting for the wide receivers on the field. Yeah. And for 2017 and beyond, we'll keep an eye on Trevor Spates out of Texas, the 28th rated running back coming out of high school, according to 24/7. Not in the mix this year, but probably down the road will come his time. So tons of talent on that Stanford roster in the backfield, starting with Mr. McCaffrey and then with Bryce Love as well. And they need to find that plotter that can get him that yard in a crucial situation, and it might be Cameron Scarlett. All right, Nick Demspey from Rule of Tree helping us out on the Stanford backfield. Appreciate it, Nick.
Thanks, Mark. Anytime.